Okay, welcome to another episode of Black Representation in the Curriculum, where we have conversations about culture, teaching, equity, and belonging. So I'm truly thrilled to have our guest today, Ebony Burnett, on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So I usually don't start it. I usually start a show by saying, go ahead and introduce yourself. But we were talking and I found out you won the primaries.
Yeah.
And so I just have to start it that way. Truly excited for you. So please go ahead and introduce yourself and let the audience know what primaries you won.
Yeah. So, again, Ebony Burnett, so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on to the conversation. And so, we recently won the Democratic primary for Guilford County Schools Board of Education for District
Awesome.
4. I am thrilled
Congratulations.
about that honor. I've been working with and for children and families for 24 years, and so to be able to now operate at a larger level to impact and have a true impact on children and families here in Guilford County is a tremendous honor. I still have to win the general election in November, but I
Mhm.
feel confident in our ability to do that and the team's ability to do that. And so I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to have the conversation and to talk about our kids. And so that's what really matters to me.
So, well, congratulations again.
You?
Um, so, start by telling us, who you are, especially in relation to Guilford County,
Yeah.
um, and a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Guilford County, North Carolina. I moved to Florida for high school, not by not by my choice, with my family, and
Uh-huh.
then came back to go to school at North Carolina A&T State University. So to
Okay.
any Aggies who might be listening, Aggie pride. And so I have a degree in social work. And in one of my social work classes, I needed to get about 24 hours of service learning. And so within those 24 hours of service learning, they turned into about 400 hours of service
Mm,
learning at the YMCA, at the Hayes Taylor YMCA, that was or near the campus of North Carolina A&T. And so from there, I worked at the Boys and Girls Club. I was a classroom teacher. I was a director for the Y for quite a few years for Hayes Taylor Y. And then I led the YMCA of Greensboro's youth development department that
mhm,
overspanned two counties, so Guilford County and Rockingham County. So we were able to work with and support about 2,000 students per year.
wow,
Was excited to be able to do that. Now I work with a nonprofit called Shift Ed or Shift
mhm,
Education and work to support community partnerships and align our community around resources, aligned resources for students in our community. And so we work closely with lots of community partners along with our school district to meet the needs of our students. So I love what I get to do. This is perfect alignment with what I'm doing at. In my position or future position on the school board, as well as what I love to do in community and to be present and to make a difference for our students.
wow,
And I have 2
wow.
kids. So I wanna mention my 2 kiddos. I have 2 kids in Guilford County School, so I wanna make sure I say that 'cause, that is a huge reason of why I do what I do as well, 'cause I know that what we do and what I do on the board is gonna have a direct impact on my family, and so, that's really important to me as
No, wow. I trying to figure out which direction to go now because I have quite a few questions here. I know when you and I chatted, I know you attended school there,
well.
so you got to see parenting from different perspective, right? Your parents as well as you now as a parent. But before I want to delve a little bit into that, but I was curious as to, what made you decide to, run for the board.
Well, I had some wonderful examples of phenomenal leadership, on
Mm,
the board, and so I've seen it 2 or 3 or several, key leaders on our school board who, really
mhm,
inspired me, to lead, and so,
mhm,
those people were a huge factor, a huge impact, and a reason for me running. I'd been
mhm,
planning to run for quite a few years. And then when the position came open, having learned and grown up in Guilford County, wanting to leave, my life has always been about impact. How can I have the largest impact on the
mhm,
number of students or the largest number of children? And through that, when we found out that seat was going to be open,
mhm,
it was prime time to go ahead, and we had even started saving. Our family started saving money a few years ago just so we would have some seed fund
mhm,
started. So, this
Well,
has been something that we had been working toward, and knowing that we were going to, I was going to make this run, and, I love children. That is my world. They are my world, and
yeah.
so I wanna make sure that they're successful.
Wow. Now, I know we had talked briefly about, just you filling different roles in terms of, being a student, being a mom now. What can you highlight a little bit about that experience, just being a student, right?
Mhm.
And what it was like and what led you to do some of the community work, because for the last conversation we had, in some ways you mentioned, I'm just looking at my notes, that you were like a connector, right, between parents and the board and things like that. So I was just curious as to, what your experience has been and what led you down this road.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with my childhood. My childhood is a key factor in why I am the way I am, why I am the way I am. And so, having grown up as a child living in poverty with a large percentage of our students in Guilford County growing up in poverty fully, but I have an understanding of what those children are going through.
Mm,
Having to live without electricity and without food, and having
mm,
to navigate all of the challenges of growing up in poverty. My brother and I were just talking today. He said, I remember when, my friends didn't have to worry about how I was going to take a shower, or knowing that, when I got home, our lights were off, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to get my homework done with no
mhm,
lights, having to
mm,
sit by the window, take it out, so those kinds of things are the fuel to my fire, because I understand a lot of the students are going through some of the similar things. And so, having grown up in
mhm,
Guilford County schools, and now being a parent in Guilford County schools, and seeing the impact of a strong educational system, a strong and innovative educational system, but also
mhm,
understanding the challenges
mhm,
of loss of funding, the desire to defund our public schools is was what it
mhm,
seems. In a lot of
yeah,
spaces, I just feel like that is just continuing to happen, just defunding our public schools.
yeah,
And so, I want to use all of those experiences of those opportunities where I can connect people and can
mhm,
connect resources, to have a greater impact on students. So, I want to use all of those things to weave together, and to use that experience to support kids.
oh, a lot of times when you think of poverty, we picture these other countries, right? But I do have to say I've been amazed, now being in North Carolina, how many pockets of poverty there is here. Um, and people who have difficulty, just getting normal internet access, for example. What are some of those, so when you talk about even electricity and, not having, lighting to do stuff, you're talking about even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so students now are I can I can't say I promise, but I'm almost sure that we have students who are living
Mhm.
those basic needs. I mean, we have,
Mhm.
within at any given moment, we have about 2,000 students living in transition, and I was one
Mhm.
of the students where we had to live in our van for quite a few days. And so, I know that that's happening, even
Mhm.
specifically during the pandemic. We had some students who were on the property of our YMCA, because it was a safe space. We had
Mhm.
and so students could connect and could be, but we had some families that were living in their car on our property. So
Mhm.
it mm, it was it still is, a
Yeah.
challenge for a lot of families, and then
Mhm.
the rising costs that we're all facing,
Right.
doesn't make anything easier for anyone, especially those families.
Right. And yes, I agree, because I've had conversations with people realizing, and even with students, you're talking about adults,
Mhm.
and teachers in some of these poor areas, who are, getting their license and things like that. So, which highlighted, yes, those areas of poverty, uh, still exist.
Yeah.
And I know where I am, when it comes to healthcare, because where I am in university, they send out a bus, you know, into pockets to assist with healthcare as well. So yeah, it's very real. People think it's happening in Africa. Those pockets are very real and very current. Now, You said one of the things you've done, you went from 34 hours to 400
Yeah.
hours supporting. What were you doing supporting? What kind
So
of supports?
So I was basically another after school counselor. So I
Mm.
mean it was I was there so often like I was almost on the schedule
Mhm.
for the so I got my 25 hours or 25 hours, loved it, and
Uh-huh.
just stayed on. So I kept coming. I was there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday,
Mm.
sharing with students, helping with homework, providing, playing games and doing all kinds of things. And then one student, this is the reason I even applied because I ended up becoming a camp counselor officially. One
Mm.
student said, "Well, you're just a volunteer," and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, let's," because she didn't want to listen to what I had to say. Yeah, I was correcting some behavior,
Right,
and
right.
from there, I was like, "Let me go ahead and apply to be a camp counselor." So I became a camp counselor from there, but the
Mhm,
400 hours was from just wanting to be involved.
mhm,
I was a camper there at the Y at one point in 5th grade,
mhm.
and so it was a way to give back, and I loved it.
Yeah,
Just placed me right there, and it was, that's where my love for children, my love for teaching, my love for educating, that's where it blossomed, and they gave me the autonomy to be able to dream big,
yeah.
and yeah, the Y really propelled me into what I'm doing now. Was able to do some of that here, at the Y, and now I'm able to do it at a larger scale, at Shift Ed.
Right. Wow. So, I'm so curious because, I know a lot of times when we do things for quote unquote "the community," sometimes it doesn't really reach the community, right? Especially when we, have all these grant funding projects and things like that. And realizing, it's not only a struggle sometimes, but the disconnect between, our goals and actually connecting with the community
Mhm.
can be very real
Yeah.
and different. And I know you mentioned you've partnered with other projects.
Yes.
What are some, well, first of all, what are some challenges to for people who say they want to meet the needs of the community? And it doesn't quite, it kind of doesn't quite get there.
Mhm.
What are some of those challenges, and what do you think causes them?
Um, well, some of the challenges are
Mhm.
not being proximate to the
Mm, mm,
so one of the things that we did, at Shift Ed and even within the YMCA and at Shift Ed is having community partners who are working directly with those families because 'cause we're not
mhm,
really a direct service provider, but we work with
mhm,
people, organizations that are the direct service providers, and they're
mhm,
the voices and the voices of their families, are the voices that we listen to, and we wanted to
mm,
make sure that any policy or any strategies that were developed or any new initiative that the YMCA developed, we used family voice. And so in family voice and youth voice, we often had our youth to develop the lesson plans and help us to build the
mhm,
lesson plans. So we try
mm,
to co-create that with the
mhm,
community. You have to be with the students, you have to be very proximate to the challenges. And I
mm,
feel the problem often is that we're creating solutions for them, but not with them.
mhm, mhm.
Want to create the solutions with our community, with our partners. They know what their challenges are. They know what they're
Yeah.
struggling with and connecting with their families and supporting their families. And so we want to be that backbone. We want to be that agency that supports their work so that they can
Mhm,
be more effective in their day-to-day operations, working with our community.
mm. And what are some of those needs, especially with work in the community that they've expressed, um, that maybe are or aren't being met? Mhm,
Yeah. One of the most recent needs that has been brought up is the access to period products. There is period products for
mm.
girls, and
Oh,
so, yeah,
wow.
recognizing just having a conversation with a community partner shared that a key cause, a cause for high absenteeism in schools, specifically for young ladies, is their periods, and so those are things we don't consider as a problem.
Mm,
She addressed that she's a nurse, and she used to use a organization that's called Divine Drops, and so Divine Drops is an organization I am advocate for, but they provide reusable period products for young ladies, teaching them how to use those products and educating the community and
Mhm.
community partners on how to support students in using those products. So that's a resource you never would have thought about as it relates to students' needs. But
Mm,
there's housing. Like I said, we at any point in time we have about 2,000 students who are in transition in Guilford County schools. We
mm,
also, have just, we have food deserts in our area. Then we have just the disparities in academic outcomes for
mhm.
students where the data is showing up.
Right.
Um, so we're looking at those disparities between our Black students and their white counterparts and how those disparities exist and persist in our community. And so
Mhm.
how are we working with our teachers, with our educators to understand the disparities exist? What are we going to do with that as a community? So um, it's trying to, but we know that's a systemic issue.
Mhm.
That's racism still exists, and
Mhm.
so our students are still dealing with some of those
Mhm.
struggles in their classroom. Not necessarily feeling it, but it is happening. We have implicit biases; those things are showing up in classrooms too, and so we also always want to make sure that I lift that up too because it is certainly real and present in our communities.
Wow. You're gonna have to forgive some of my ignorance here.
Yeah,
I
yes.
never thought reusable and period products in the same sentence. What were you referring to?
So they're reusable pads, and then there are also reusable undergarments. So
Oh, okay.
they can be washed. They can be hand washed. We prefer, we want students to place them in the
Oh,
washing
okay.
machine, but
Mhm.
they can be used. Take them off, and students can just throw it in the washing machine and use it again. And so what it does is it reduces waste, but it also
Mhm.
prevents a student from having to repurchase those materials every single month because that can get costly
Yeah.
and so we want to make sure that students have choice in
Well.
their if they want to use a disposable product, they can, but
Mhm.
they have access to those reusable products. And so we want to, of course, be environmentally conscious and
Mhm.
know that that's another cost. I personally use them, so
Right.
it is a
Mhm.
cost I don't incur every single month
Mhm.
taking care of my body as well. So we want
Mhm.
we want students to have access to those resources.
Well. I realize I failed to ask you to just describe the demographics. Um, you know, as much as you can of Guilford County area where you are.
So Guilford County Schools is majority minority. So most of our students are African American, or we have about 121 languages spoken in our district. Uh,
Mm,
we have I feel like the numbers have changed as far as the number of students living in poverty, but the last I've seen was about 66% of our students are living in poverty, and so
mm,
and the vast number of those students receiving free reduced lunch. So that's kind of how that metric is created. So
mhm,
that's the demographic. We're a very diverse school district, and so we want to we have a lot to navigate. We actually have a school called the Newcomer School that is specifically for students who are from immigrant and refugee population who are speaking different languages, English as a second language.
mhm,
ESL learners, so we have a school dedicated to those students as well, and so we have high pockets of poverty
mhm,
in both Greensboro and High Point, and so we are a large district with a lot of diverse needs, both rural and suburban and urban areas here in Guilford. So we are a good mix. So those snow days are real interesting because we've got to navigate the rural areas, the
mhm.
countrysides, and those inner city, inner Greensboro and inner High Point areas that we have to accommodate for. So very, very diverse community.
Yeah, it's one of the things that does fascinate me about North Carolina, that you can go there and it's rural, and you can go here and it's
Yeah.
suburban, and there it's urban, a big mix. What are some let's see. What are some, let's say, pressing issues, that, you find yourself being focused on to meet the needs of students, and
Yeah.
families, right now?
Yeah. One of the most pressing issues I see right now is mental health supports for students.
Mhm,
We've seen funding roll back mental health supports for students, in a
Mm,
myriad of areas. And so one of my goals, my hopes is to provide I can't, I'm not a clinician clinician,
right.
but I would love for just increased funding for those mental health supports in students because it also impacts safety at our school. So that's thinking about mental health supports and safety, they go hand in hand. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
safety is a huge priority. And so one of the things I hope to do is to ensure that every student in Guilford County schools has a champion, has a safe person that they can talk to. So the district
Mhm,
has said the number one safety measure in a school is for a student to have a trusted adult. And so when a
mm,
has a trusted adult, they have someone that they can go to and talk to about a safety concern. They have someone they can talk to about and something they're not feeling well or
mhm,
they're having an issue at home. We wanna make sure that those students have a safe and supportive person, and it doesn't have to be a teacher. It can be a janitor, it could be, a custodian, a lunch lady,
mhm,
anyone at the school, a bus driver, any of those people can be a safe person for students, and when COVID hit, that was what tore me up the most was that our students weren't going to have that safe person. A child may have was going to say something the next day and couldn't because the school
mm,
and now they're in a unsafe home for an extended amount of time. That's what tore me up probably the most during the
mm,
pandemic. Just making sure that students have that champion, have that person that they can talk to in school. Because when they have that person, they can go if they hear something, they hear about something, they can say something. And
mhm,
it's things can get nipped quicker if they have that person that they can talk to. So one of the things I've said to my own children as we're doing, I do carpool, was who is your safe person at school? Like
mm,
who is that adult that you can talk to? So one of the things I hope within the first few weeks of school is that each student has identified a safe person, a safe adult in their
mhm,
classroom school that they can go to, and they identify that person. And then that person knows that Ethan's safe person, that's my son, Ethan's safe person is Miss Moore at his schools. So
mhm,
that she knows that she's his safe person and she can check in on him.
right.
He hasn't seen him or, so that there's that mutual relationship that's built because of that safe person, that safety aspect that's added to the school district or to their school.
Wow. Something you take for granted, the need or for a safety person to talk to. Um, I don't think, how many people have to think about that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how does okay, so how is it now? Like after now, COVID's passed. What's lacking in terms of having that safety person? Like, I'm just so curious about, you know.
Mhm. Well, we're lacking teachers. I mean,
Mm, okay, okay. Yeah.
we need teachers, and May 1st, they are descending on, in Raleigh, and they are going to
Uh-huh.
make their demands known to our legislature, but we need teachers. We need to make sure that our teachers are fully supported,
Uh-huh.
not just with pay, though. So I wanna make sure that people recognize pay
Uh,
is important. Like, we need them to be able to have a wonderful career where they can work their one job, love their one job, be passionate about that one job and not have to work another job, or where they can have money for their vacations in the summer or vacation whenever they want to. It doesn't have to be the summer.
uh-huh.
They can take some days off and we have enough surplus, enough subs for teachers to be able to take vacation or go on a cruise in October because we
Mhm.
have enough subs to cover, right? So we
Yeah,
want them to be able to enjoy their careers and be passionate about what they do.
right.
So if we could get enough teachers or get enough social workers, right now
Uh-huh.
we have about 700, our number is like 750 to 1, as far as social workers in our district, and school nurses is about 1 to
Wow.
150. So we wanna make sure that, and we just looked those numbers up yesterday, so that's that's how I know. But we wanna make sure that our
Uh,
schools and our resources are there so that that's the reason we don't have those support networks because we don't have a lot of teachers, and those teachers are spread very thin. And so,
uh-huh.
mm, so when we have enough teachers, we have enough support, classroom sizes aren't as large, uh,
Uh-huh.
So we don't have as many behaviors in one class or so many challenges, or our students with special needs are, we don't have to have so, one teacher with too many students. Students are getting the support that they need. So we just need to make sure we have supported teachers with money, but also
Mhm.
supported with the supportive environment in which they can
Mhm.
thrive and grow as leaders.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Needs are many.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
the resources are lacking. Wow. Um, can you highlight a little bit more how you've worked with parents?
Mhm.
Your role with parents and yeah.
Yeah. So most of my work with parents has been with the YMCA of Greensboro. So
Okay.
as a youth development director for the Hayes Taylor Y, and as a director for um, the association level, we created at the association level, we created a parent advisory or family advisory committee, where
Mhm.
they provided insights on what we needed to update and fix.
Mhm.
We would run policy through them. We would run ideas. We would get their input and feedback on specific needs that needed to be
Mhm.
met in the programs, resources that they could provide. And so even some policies we co-created with them to
Mhm.
make sure they, had a full say in that new policy that was being
Okay.
developed, maybe around discipline or around even, how we, what days we're going to have Kona ice. Like that's how regular we went with our families and how they're going to pay for Kona ice. So we were that much of their input was needed.
Mhm.
As a youth development director, working closely with families around supporting their students with behaviors or supporting their students with academics, and especially during remote learning. So we're supporting them with logging, getting information from families to log them in. But we've
Mhm.
also Christmas for families. We've also purchased, food for a family. We had
Mm.
a kitchen that we kept food bags in, and so
Mm.
we had wonderful relationships with families. And so there are a myriad of ways that we had family nights and all kinds of
Mhm.
things where we engaged with our families, and we had Healthy Kids Day just a few weeks ago, and so that might be our maybe 10th Healthy Kids Day that we've had, where families come with their kids to play together, and
Mhm.
that's always a fun event every April that
Wow.
we yeah.
Now, is that also with the Y, or is there, especially with the food, or is there a food pantry that's involved as well?
Yeah, so we didn't have a food pantry, but
Mhm.
we partnered with Backpack Beginnings, and so
Okay.
Backpack Beginnings provided us with, fresh fruit and vegetables, I think every Friday during the summer, and then
Okay.
during the school year and during some of the summer, they provided us with meal bags that students could take home on the weekends, and,
Mm.
so we had those, and
Wow.
as that student, I would have needed those meal bags, and would have
Wow. Oh my goodness.
provided those for us.
Something you don't think about that they may not be eating on the weekend. Wow. My goodness. So, wow. So, let's just say somebody got hold of this and wanted to support, right? I know we talked about, you know, period, we talked about food. What are some ways they can contribute and where would they go?
This question. I because I want to ensure that we have only we have a small number of families or people in our community have
Mhm.
students in the school district. So oftentimes people don't realize that um, when people are voting, they're not voting with necessarily students in mind because they don't necessarily have students. What I want is our community to pour into our school district, even if you don't have students in the district. So most of people who are of my age were educated by Guilford County schools. And so if
Mhm.
they're educated by Guilford County schools, use those gifts and talents that were cultivated within the school district, within your community, and pour back into the school that you attended or the school that's in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so that's one way. So they can always go to Guilford County Schools and Google Guilford County Schools volunteers and find a way to pour in back into the district. So if you have a unique gift, you have a lawn mowing company, you know,
Mhm.
In addition, when you notice that the school's grass is growing up, go by and just take care of it for them, because it lessens the burden on the school district, because they only have capacity. They have 100. We have 121 schools. That's a lot of schools, a lot of grass, a lot of property to cut.
Mhm.
But we had community partners who were pouring in and providing their unique gifts and resources to support the schools, like way back in the day, when the school was the community, the school was a part of the community, like my little Gibsonville Elementary, I love so much.
Mhm.
Then the school rallies, or the community rallies around that school and supports that school. That's what I want to see more of, because we just have unique gifts and talents. Another way is to mentor a child. So again, there's a study that shows that a child needs at least one caring adult outside of their immediate family to push them to succeed. So when a child is doing well, and you
Mhm.
see a successful adult, they had at least one caring adult outside of their immediate family who pushed them. So for me, it was my aunt and my cousin who are
Mhm.
really influential in my life. And so most people can think about that person. So be
Yeah.
a mentor, be a volunteer, be a safe adult for a child. Even it could be a niece, a nephew. That
Mhm.
still, you could be a coach. Any of those people. Right now, it's my son's coach is just pouring into him. I love it so much. So
Mhm.
having that safe, that other trusted adult. So be that other trusted adult. But if you want to support Shift Ed, you can go to www.shift shift dot dash ed.org. So
Mhm.
shifted.org. You can always give there. That is a way to pour into what we're doing at Shift Ed. We'll
Mhm.
always put that plug there. But you can also give to Guilford County Schools. You can volunteer at Guilford County Schools. We have schools that might have a little bit of lunch debt. Hey, help pay for a few students' lunches. There's
Yeah.
ways to give. So it's not just monetarily, but you can be a lunch buddy. My husband was a lunch buddy. Secret
Oh.
buddy was really cool, and you can go eat lunch with a student throughout the week. So that's another resource in a way that someone could pour back into their school, even if you don't have students in the district, or if your students have graduated, you can still give back.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow. Now I know that one of the things that sometimes is lacking, um, is, especially when we compare neighborhoods and those that are poor or
Mhm.
impoverished, is sometimes a lack of, after school options, right? That may keep kids occupied, out of trouble, involved in other things.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things I run into, even if you want to be somebody who contributes, if if contributing to an area where people are poor,
Mhm.
it's very hard to have that business there, right?
Yes.
And I know you've mentioned Boys and Girls Club as well. Can you speak to what type of resources are there or are lacking? Similar, um, you know, can you shed some light on things that maybe need to be thought about
Yeah.
when it comes to that? And I'm curious about more of those roles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is systemic, and was
Or
done on purpose, right? So, we think about
like
redlining,
what?
like redlining
Okay.
here in Guilford County. It happened all over the nation. Um,
Mhm.
redlining happened here in Guilford County, in East Greensboro. I'm most familiar with Greensboro. Um,
Mhm.
I know it happened in High Point too. So, but we've got redlining happened, and so those communities were underfunded, under resourced. Um,
Mhm.
when people moved out, renters moved in, and so the property values decreased, and so all kinds of
Mhm.
systemic things
Right.
created challenges. So it's going to take a mindset shift
Mm.
for a lot of the community members and even our elected officials. It's going to take a mindset shift to understand that
Mhm.
these parts of our community have been underfunded, and so we've got a lot of work to do for those communities. I just went to a training where they talked about the the
Mhm.
the impact of power. So putting
Mhm.
power back into those communities where, again, we're not doing things for them, we're doing things with them, and we're giving them the power to lead in their communities and lead in those
Mhm.
spaces. East Greensboro at one point was thriving. It was a thriving community.
Mm.
So, but with redlining and them putting in
So
railroads and
expand on what redlining is,
yeah, okay.
because sometimes these words become so repeated that people forget what they mean and
Mhm.
how they apply.
Yes. So redlining occurred when funders or loans were not given to individuals or to homes that were going to be in specific pockets of the
Mhm,
community. So if specifically East Greensboro, they would not where a lot of our Black families were living, they would
mhm,
not give loans or provide resources to those specific communities, and so
mhm,
because there were no loans were given, those families were not able to build equity in homes, they were not able to build, wealth, as they would be able to on another side of town, so those Black communities were not able to buy homes,
mhm,
and prevented those, and on other sides of towns, those loans were given, but Black people could not move into those areas. So it
mhm,
it created concentrated poverty in certain parts of town. And when those children, when properties were purchased or when they could get properties there, it was kind of too late, right? So the
mhm,
town has been building wealth, and so our Black side of town was not able to do so, and it just created
mhm,
like pockets of it created generational poverty, had a generational impact on different sides of our area, different sides of our town.
mm. Wow. I have never talked about this or framed this way, but I know that I've experienced redlining for the first time.
Mm,
We bought property in a part of Maryland that's historically Black.
mhm.
There were a lot of history, and this was the first time I had difficulty getting insurance for that house.
Wow.
And I was trying to understand, it's the first time I encountered where, you talk to someone and they the reasoning they give you is they don't really give you a reason. I think I'm pretty sure. Part of reason I'm exploring some economic stuff is to truly understand what's happening and where it is as well. I see it with uh, even a home equity line that I attempted to get. Gone through the whole process, and then they went to the area to. It's a beautiful neighborhood, by the way. They went to the area, and it's a gentrified neighborhood. So I think there's something on the books that was never removed. When you get all of those messages
Mhm.
that when something stops, but you're not given any reason for anything, I
Yeah.
think there's something on the books that these places communicate with each other.
Mhm.
I guess that's how you redlined, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where nobody else is privy to that information.
Yep.
Um, I'm so curious about that. That I guess I might even test a few things out just to see. But yeah, sorry. I just
Yeah. But yeah, it's had a generational impact, and so,
Mhm,
um, it's had a so those are some reasons why those communities are lacking, and then just consistently being underfunded, and being looked over, and so, if you fix a problem early, it doesn't
mhm,
that's expensive, but at this point, it's gonna take so much more effort,
mm,
to help galvanize those communities and provide give those families back that power to support their community and uplift what's happening in their communities. It's just going to take some time, and so sometimes even this is Ebony's musing is how do we make sure that they know they have the power, right? So we want to give them the power. Okay, how do we make sure that they know how to wield the sword of their truth and of their power to create lasting change in their community? Because for so long they've been powerless, and so how do we teach them and support our community and hey, this is yours, you take it and you
mhm,
go and run with it. And I don't know if it's necessarily teaching, but just making sure that they know that their voices will be heard and their impact will be felt. So that's Ebony's thoughts. These are just my musings, and it could be a very uh There's shallow view. I don't know, but just I want to make sure that when you sometimes give even if like my children, they can all of a sudden now use a knife and they're looking at me and they're like, can I use it? Can I use a
Mhm.
knife? Am I allowed to do that? It's that same kind of like, am I okay? And once they do it and they see there's no backlash and they see that, I can cut this apple by myself, then
Mm.
they're gonna start cutting all kinds of all kinds of things they shouldn't be cutting. So it's again given specifically for my children, giving them giving their community that power
Wow.
and to wield it. Yeah.
It makes so much sense. You're reminding me years ago, I used to attend, kind of like an urban planning,
Mhm.
um, lecture, that was given on behalf of you know, a good friend of mine, her father. I was really fascinated to see, how, towns and cities and, because I've been to, I don't remember how many of them I've been to, but, some of the lecturers would talk about even different parts of the world,
Mhm.
how things are planned on a larger scale, which impact neighborhoods. I find that really fascinating. It's not something we really teach about, right? Not something we really teach about. That level of planning, town planning, things like that.
Mhm.
That you know, people don't realize things come about because of something that was
Yeah.
instituted or implemented. Sorry, go ahead. You're gonna say.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm thinking about our planning boards, our city council flipped the whole game. And so we have new city council members, and I know that one of the city council members mentioned pulling some people together for their planning boards and the things that they are leading. And I had another partner who said, "Yeah, I'm gonna do like small p politics where I'm helping to inform our elected officials about what's happening in the community." And so I love that, but I'm thinking these boards, these planning committees, planning teams, um, you know, are they accessible for their average working person, right? So
Mm,
have this planning team, is it accessible? Are the planning meetings happening during the day where
mhm,
like the average person could not attend because they're working, your person working at the Toyota plant or, however, or can we make sure that the planning meetings are held after typical work hours?
mm,
I think those are
yeah.
kind of things I don't know the answer. This is just me musing again. This is now it's just like just a brainstorming session. But really thinking about, how to
Mhm,
make sure that within
yeah.
this what we're trying to create, we even accommodate for time and accommodate for, dinner time. All those things need to take into account when we're planning to have, these planning meetings or whatever, so
Well,
to give that power.
you're reminding me of a conversation I had with a guest. You know, her podcast, will be aired soon. But a lot of times we do plan without those constituents in mind, especially if they're poor. And sometimes it's simple as asking, "When are you available?" And sometimes it's orchestrated.
Mhm,
I had to write the word orchestrated because we were talking about planning. I'm like, orchestrated, right? Sometimes it's orchestrated to, make sure those people are absent,
mhm.
for certain things, especially for big things, right? A lot of them don't attach significance to their presence, right? And so may choose to be absent because, maybe because of their own perceived lack
Mhm.
of impact. I'm not even sure they're thinking that part. They're probably thinking, "I need food," right? But
If you think about the hierarchy of needs, they're
mhm,
thinking, "I need to" like, my family, my that would have been not a thing that my family would have considered, like,
mhm,
planning team, I need to make sure my lights are on, and
yeah,
so, we've gotta make sure basic needs are met, again, a
mm,
systemic issue, basic needs are met so
right.
that they can, be engaged in meaningful ways in their communities.
Wow. Hmm. Now, I want to continue and pick your brain about the role of the Y and the boys and girls, in terms of what's lacking.
Mhm,
Um, Like, what is there now and what still needs to be there? I know it's
Uh,
big, and you probably won't think of all the places, but I'm just curious what comes to mind. Mhm.
um, I'd say greater access to those types of programs.
Mhm.
Um, I forgot the statistic, and I'm a statistics queen, but Um, the NC After School North Carolina After School Association has the
Mm.
statistics around how many students want to be in after school if there was one available. Um,
Okay.
we need to make sure that we have enough safe spaces, affordable, quality safe spaces. That's
Mhm.
it's one thing to have an after school program. It's another thing to have a high quality, safe, and supportive after school
Right.
and that not only provides those, the safe space, but can
Mhm.
also provide a bridge between what happens in the school day and what happens in the after school program. So a
Mm.
lot of times in my after school program, I was teaching, the old way to divide. And now my daughter is learning a whole new way to divide that we had to, had to learn and support her and so we wanna make sure that what students are learning during
Mhm.
the school day is also translated to what they're learning in after school so that when they get back to school, it's not a whole new way of doing math, or they're hearing the same social emotional learning values in after
Mhm.
school that they're hearing at school. And so if we had more high quality programs and services like the Y, like the Boys and Girls Club, or like any other, there's an organization called D Up in High Point that I'm a huge fan of
Mhm.
and the work that the High Point Schools Partnerships is doing
Mm.
in Guilford County. So
Mhm.
those are the kinds of tools and resources, that we need to have more of,
Mhm.
so that more kids have access. But as far as within those programs, I would love to see a lot more, soon to be teachers, budding teachers. So if the that those are the best youth leaders that I have ever worked with. If you
Mm.
are looking to be a classroom teacher, the WOW or the Boys and Girls or a youth serving organization, this is my shameless plug. A youth serving organization is the best place to get that experience because
Mhm.
you can manage a classroom and you can manage a group of 25, students that have no specific curriculum. You are building the curriculum, you are doing the activities, you are leading the
Mhm.
games. That is a huge bonus for for you. But if we had more of those kinds of students who want to become educators and working with our colleges and universities to get those students into those kinds of programs where they get some real hands-on experience working with students before they
Mhm.
even go into their teaching,
Mhm.
into their student teaching, efforts, then that would strengthen those programs even the more. And then
Mhm.
students are getting, a future teacher in their space. They're
Mhm.
getting, those teachers are learning the pedagogy, learning how to teach it. So those students are getting the practice. Our after schoolers are getting that practice and that support from future teachers. And
Mhm.
then those educators are going into the district even more prepared. And so that
Mhm.
would be a beautiful through line to prepare future teachers, provide a resource for our colleges and universities, and then make sure that teachers are prepared. They're prepared when they come, but
Mhm.
GCS does a great job of preparing them, but even more when they've had that real hands-on experience.
Wow. How have you partnered with universities and similar colleges, universities, things like that?
I wanna partner more. It's hard to get into, like, it's our smaller universities, like our Greensboro College,
Mm.
Guilford College are kinda easier to kind of work through,
Yeah.
larger universities are sometimes hard to
Yeah.
network with, and so, it's easiest to go, like, through I've sent, postings through professors, like, "Hey, we have some positions open," that kinda thing. And
Mhm.
we've been to some of their volunteer fairs and those kinds of things.
Mhm.
But I haven't had a real partnership with the university yet. That would be a dream
Mm.
come true.
Okay.
If you have any opportunities, if you know people, let me know. That would be a real opportunity. I have not been able to, I know professors, and so I would go through the professors who would then share their.
Mhm.
So I've gotten a few students that way, but not
Yeah.
like not real deep embedded partnership. Now I can say there are universities that do partner with WISE across the nation.
Mhm.
something we've been able to accomplish yet.
Yeah.
The power of yet.
Wow. Yeah, I've always had a vision, which is really hard to accomplish. Well, it doesn't have to be hard, but currently is. In my previous position, one of the things I did was launched a mentoring program where
Mhm,
students were, they were peer mentors to each other. And then, I started engaging even homeschooling students who are
mhm,
homeschooling, and invited my students, and I do that now too, have them observe me teaching them.
mhm,
And, when we were in person, those were in person courses, my students would have the opportunity to work with the kids as well.
mhm,
Um, and I've always envisioned a similar mentoring type of program. I'm purposely putting that out there, um, where which I think would be such a great opportunity where you have college students, can mentor. And if I'm not mistaken, I think even my current university probably does have something similar. I vaguely remember speaking with someone, and I think there is something similar where I am. But the nice part was it gave the college students, in the other mentoring program, um, it was a job for them, right?
mhm,
Um, so if there was funding, it was such an opportunity for, students to engage
mhm,
in that type of academic mentoring or tutoring and things like that. Were those funds available or provided by someone? The logistics is very interesting because you do need someone. The only reason that was successful is I had someone
mhm,
who worked more closely with um, the students in one particular setting. But there were so many lessons to learn from, you know, trying to implement something like that I could see, working really well. I mean, there'll be a lot of logistics to work out because you want to make sure people are, the background checks and all kinds of stuff. I was fortunate in that, because I am, in the School of Education, we get to do, our students go through the background checks.
mhm.
Um, before interacting with the kids, but, yeah,
Yeah, that would be phenomenal,
that'd be
especially
amazing.
it would be it oh. So
Yeah, it met so many needs. What do you want people to know that I didn't ask or that you really think is important that I didn't touch on? What's important to know?
all politics are local. That is your voice matters, really.
Mhm,
I just learned this last night too, that North Carolina is number 50 in engagement with, their legislators or their elected officials. So
mhm,
we do not engage in North Carolina. We do not engage. We are 50th in the nation in
mhm,
engagement with our elected officials. We need
sure,
to recognize that our voices in every space matter, and I was talking with a group of teens on Saturday, and so one of the questions in my little jar of, questions, in my little question civic engagement jar was,
mhm,
why don't people speak up, and why don't people have these conversations. And they said, fear. I mean, they said it, not me. But it
mhm,
is true. It is true that people are afraid of what others are going to think about them. People are going to be afraid of, how others view them. And so, it, it, it has a huge impact on, voices being heard. We, I'm gonna say we, because I want to be an elected official. Elected officials want to hear from their constituents. I'm going to want to hear. I want to hear, from the voters in District 4 and across the county on what's impacting them, what's impacting their families. And so I want people to know that your voice matters, your vote matters. 23 votes at our state level is a big deal. Is a
mhm,
big deal with that Senate race. 23
yeah,
votes, 23 people had an impact and have changed the course of history. So those
mhm,
votes matter, those voices matter.
mm,
Please hear that they're, people are showing up. And then another thing I heard, I'm not even sure, I saw it on Facebook, so I don't know how true it is, but it was saying in other countries, the government is afraid of the people, where like when people what they and when they say afraid, they
yeah,
say when people get out into the streets and they are protesting, the government moves, the government acts. And
mm.
so
It depends on where those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, depends on
Almost
which countries those are. I mean, we
right.
post all.
But in the United States, you would think that would be the same. You would think that the voices that we have are such a powerful country, that would be where the government like truly does listen to the voices of the people. Um,
Mhm,
and I would love to see more of that where we are speaking up, we are speaking to our legislators. We aren't afraid to have those conversations with our legislators, with our elected officials, because they work for the people. And so we want to make sure that, I don't
at
want
least
anybody,
we need to remind them
yeah, I
that they work for the people.
don't want
I don't
anybody
think that,
I don't want anybody afraid of anybody like that. I don't want that. I want there to be a
yeah,
mutually beneficial relationship where,
uh-huh,
we are working together. We are co-governing with our
yeah,
constituents, and they're co-governing with us. So again, voices matter. Show up. You don't have to scare them. You ain't got to do nothing crazy, but
uh-huh.
really make sure that we are speaking up and using our voice.
Now you said we're 50th. We ranked 50th. What was this, ranking?
It was in the North Carolina Civic Health Index.
Okay.
So they talked about I was at a conference or a meeting about it last
So,
week.
were you talking about a specific county or
North Carolina, the state.
oh, so North Carolina ranked all the other states as well. Health
Yes. Yeah,
Civics ranked all the other states. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. So we're 50th according to
Mhm,
the North Carolina Civic Health Index, we are 50th in this state in
mm,
regards to, contacting our elected officials. Now, we're not 50th in everything, but that
mhm.
specific metric, that's where we kinda fell across
So,
the
probably part of it is access then, right?
mm,
Access to them.
yeah, absolutely.
Do they make themselves accessible?
Mm, that's
Where would
good.
you find one? I mean, where would you go to
Yep.
find one? That would be a question, right?
Mhm. That's
Um, Especially since depending on where you are, they may not be a downtown, they may not have an office there,
mhm. Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
you know? Like, they're not visible.
Yep.
These invisible people who are running, I guess
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people love that invisibility here
Yeah.
to be
Not any
orchestrating and doing things without,
mhm.
um
Got a lot of oversight from that is very and then, if you don't have access to the internet or, you don't
uh-huh,
have an email, you can't, you don't have, or the digital divide is real too.
mm,
Was working with
yeah,
some friends at Goodwill
or
and
running water.
yeah,
Yeah,
they don't know how to
that
use
surprised me.
yeah,
Mhm,
so, we want them to email their legislator, but they don't, they're trying to
uh-huh,
learn how to complete a job application online.
uh-huh,
So, even some of those skills are not present in some of our population.
yeah. It's one of those things where it's always I don't wanna say a toss-up too because, my father-in-law, when he was alive, he lived in a part of North Carolina where, he had a well, right? They use well water. And so, it's you don't have those luxuries of, let's just say, an urban area, but the cost was low, compared to where we were living, right? At the time we were in New Jersey. So it was a perfect place for him, to live and he retired. And so, it's always we want these things and they're important. I don't necessarily know that they have to cost the way they do, but people always use them as an opportunity to say for a friend to get a lift, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or some type of leg up,
Mhm.
in whatever way they want to include them. I say the cost, and I'm also saying the leg up thing just because a lot of times, um, as much of that is orchestrated, right, and viewed as opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
And so when you talk about leg up, are you talking about equity? Like, is that leg up you're thinking, or is it
I'm talking about whatever, whether it's a company.
okay.
In other words, you you know how they say how many do people do it take to change a light bulb, right? You know, I see that happen quite a bit.
Okay.
But all right. Well, any other takeaways you want to leave the audience with?
No, no, just show up, speak up.
Yeah.
That's we wanna hear from you. But I will be
Congratulations. What's
yeah,
that?
I said, "I will be present, so you won't have to look for me far because 'cause I'm a little bit of everywhere." A little bit of everywhere. And so unless I'm working, I am out in communities.
Awesome. Well, it's nice to see because because of your involvement with the community, you've gotten to this point, which I think is, how it should be. Um, so you won the primary, and was that a specific position on the board or?
It's for district, so we're separated into districts.
Oh, okay.
So I represent District 4, which is, kind of,
Mhm.
calls it the countryside of,
Mhm.
county. She doesn't like the word rural, so it's calls it we call it the countryside, so the countryside of Guilford County, and so that's the space. I have a little bit of, Greensboro,
Mhm.
but not much of the kind of the city of Greensboro. But
Okay.
yeah, so that's
Awesome.
the space.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be celebrating soon.
I hope so. I hope so, and, if, anyone wants to volunteer, I will take you to you I will we need canvassing, we need all those things. So if anyone ever wants to support, feel free to support.
Well, thank you, Ebony Burnett, for being here today. Um, I want to tell everyone, if you like this episode, please like it and subscribe and follow so that you can be alerted for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.